G'day friends and fans, and welcome to Dave Talk Stuff Ukraine War Update for the 1st of August 2025. I'm your host, the author David Applegate, author of the books The Boyhood of Cade, Power Games, Into the Osbound, and The Erotic Tales from the Empire. Part 1 available on Amazon. All my links are in the link tree. Thank you to all those who support the channel. You can support the channel through Patreon, buy my books, buy my merch. Scan the QR code on the screen or wait till after the show. Alright, so breaking news, Zelensky has called for the breaking news for the 1,254th time. Zelensky's called for regime change in Russia because he's a little coward, a little bitch, a crybaby who just cannot stand the fact that the world does not revolve around him and his... Is it his menstruation cycle or he's in menopause and he just lashing out? Who knows? Either way, Zelensky's a coward in a bunker, prolonging the war so he can stay in power. We do not know if the Russian strikes deliberately targeted or were driven off course by electronic warfare, or the fact is they're not as accurate as Russia thinks they are, or says they are. But Russia has officially taken control of Chasiv Yar after nearly 16 months of fighting on the assertion which Kiev has dismissed as propaganda, yet their own maps show differently. Alright, so Ukrainian drones were allegedly headed for an electronics plant. Yeah. But there's actually Russian footage showing the drones falling into a lake. So, and of course, Ukraine is so stunning and brave, firing drones into Russia because nobody will call them out. How can you have a ceasefire when Ukraine won't stop firing drones? But of course, Trump has criticised Moscow for not stopping, but every time he's given to April 8th. So we are on the clock. 8th day is coming to an end. And the ceasefire deadline, it's time to make a deal. He says he's prepared to take additional measures. So it starts with tariffs. Trump also asked Dmitry to match his words after he said Washington's threats of hitting Moscow. Game of ultimatums. Everybody knows in a land war, Russia would lose. Ukraine would be devastated. So it's likely to be Poland, Hungary, etc. There are no winners. But of course, Zelensky doesn't care. Psychopaths don't care. They put their foot down and play chicken with everybody else's lives because even if they crash, somebody's going to bail them out because they're a world leader. Because it's a big club, you're not in it. And there's always some stupid simp somewhere in Europe willing to cry for Ukraine. Because they didn't cry for the Ukrainians when the Bolsheviks were mass murdering. They didn't cry for Ukraine when the fascists were mass murdering. And they didn't cry for Ukraine when the communists were mass murdering. And then, of course, the Banderas group, they were backed by Truman, and they were mass murdering. Folks, politics is so ugly, it is so disgusting, and the Democrat Party and the deep state is just piles upon piles of horse manure. And people like Zelensky, the only regime change that's going to end this war is Zelensky getting hung in Kiev Square by the Ukrainians, and then announcing a ceasing of firing drones beyond their borders, and calling for talks to sit down and talk until they hammer out a ceasefire agreement. None of this backwards and forwards. None of this 40-minute meetings that Ukraine engages in. Now, what gets me is Marco Rubio goes on and says, well, if we give Israel a deadline, all Hamas has to do is run down the clock and expect everybody to engage in sanctions and other punitive action on Israel. No. What would Ukraine do if you gave Russia a deadline for a ceasefire? Geez, Mark, this is why you didn't win the nomination last time, because you just say things that are so obviously easy to pick apart. Gosh. Come on, Matt. Load. Oh, God, all these ads. Ukraine's desperate for money. Alright, so there is fighting in Kupiansk again. This here, not much going on. Same here, not much going on. Fighting north of Chavashar is more of nothing. Ukraine hasn't updated the map, but there is fighting in this area. But most of the town, it's not much left, okay? It's the same here. But Ukrainian pride. You know, you want to be as smart as Ukrainian? Get a hammer and bash your forehead until you feel nothing. Ta-da! You're now a loyal Ukrainian. I have no sympathy for the Ukrainians. They are just such an self-inflicted wound of selfishness and stupidity. Well, the Russians have made small gains all along, well, at random, but only small gains. But soon this is probably likely to fall. They'll probably keep creeping up this road. As I said, the next target is on their list. Now they are seemingly stalled here. But of course, the Russian army has specific orders to pressure, but there are specific orders on when they can and can't advance. And the thing is, there's more orders, basically things that have to be met. Air defences, adequate ammunition, adequate supplies, adequate manpower, and the state of readiness in other areas on the field. Right. Say they made a breakthrough here and were fighting here. But what if fighting here pushed men into here, and they don't want men in the here, but they want to push men up this road? But they don't want to push men up this road because they want to, although they're cutting off the, putting the supply lines under threat, of course. But fucking ads. I swear. Alright, so the road deviates here. Okay, you got, I think that's the rail line, and the road deviates here. So my guess, and it's only a guess, is that they're trying to push the Ukrainians up into here, because they don't want them. They don't want them. They want to try and contain as much as they can. But as they admitted, the Ukrainian army is now over 1 million. They've actually finally admitted that they've been lying about the size of the Ukrainian army, folks. It isn't 640,000, it's 1.2 million. So, little Russia, outnumbered and outgunned by Ukraine, is still winning. Yes, overall, Russia has more arms and munitions and missiles than Ukraine. But, again, with every battle, you have to look at it, the manpower of engagement. You don't have all the Russian army. You only have 20 to 30% of the Russian army in the zone. Where in Ukraine, their army's gone from 300 to 600 to now possibly as high as 1.2 million. It's the largest army in Europe. And it's still losing. Does this look like winning? Now there's obviously action. As you can see, they're creeping up on the map, which looks more like maybe they're walking. Going to walk all this into, instead of going through here. Who knows? Okay, I'm just offering my opinion on what appears to be, although there appears to be a Russian offensive in this corner here to Zaporozhye. That, of course, could be tactical to drag, and I would suggest that it's to drag reinforcements that were bound down this road for here into Zaporozhye or towards Zaporozhye. At the same time, Russia is hitting gathering points. But if you look at the map, right, still pushing through here. It's all as Putin said. It's a liberation in their eyes of the Donbass. Now, Germany, of course, is prolonging the war by adding 2 more Patriot systems. But if they shot all Russian missiles down, they wouldn't, or had they not, clearly they have lost air defense systems, and clearly, if they were obviously shooting all the Russian missiles down, they wouldn't need more now, would they? It's so easy to poke holes. Now, of course, Kiev spaces out their lies and the Europeans drag out their announcements. Obviously, when they announce that they're sending a Patriot system, they mean they've already delivered it. They are obviously always lying, and certain assumptions have to be made. All right, so we go back to the original 50-day deadline. Something happened. Now, we don't know if it's deliberate or not, but it brought forward the deadline for Trump, adding that if no deal is made, he'll impose 100% tariffs on Moscow and its trading partners. That includes India and China, by the way. Not just Brazil, Venezuela, Cuba, and Vietnam. Now, the deadline was 10 to 12 days. It's now got 8 days left. He's been rather specific. However, he's added he wasn't sure if it would influence Russia's position, according to some, that it's not going to be immediate. But they are sure that, well, US representative to UN currently, John Kelly, has said he expects it to be solved, or at least a solution to be presented. This should have been a bit bigger. I guess it is what it is. But Ukraine, of course, has engaged in savagery. They've now digging up dead Soviet soldiers and offering them as prisoner exchange, calling the Russians occupiers, even though Ukraine was pretty much, you actually understand when soldiers die on the battlefield and they're buried, they're not occupiers, okay? Whether you like it or not, they were there to liberate Ukraine from Hitlerism. But of course, the current Ukrainian government likes Hitlerism. Trade. Now, there was a thing called the Helsinki Final Act, a Cold War agreement about European security, economic cooperation and human rights protections. Of course, he's accusing Europe of failing those and never intending to carry them out. Because, folks, in 96, had they carried it out, Russia would have been part of NATO. So would have Ukraine. And so much would have never happened. But, of course, all the Billy Clinton worshippers out there are just clutching their pearls saying, Russian disinformation. Well, that's because they're low IQ. They are... It's not that... They're just so full of hatred and self-importance. They think that their way is the only way, that they're good people, but they're not. Okay? They're the drunk who, after ploughing into a crowd, they're the drunk after ploughing into a crowd, becoming a peace activist, They never address their own issues. They're always externalizing to something else. Instead of dealing with their drug abuse and selfishness, they put it onto others, saying that other people are selfish. Blame capitalism for poverty, There's always somebody else to blame. They want to defeat Hitler by flooding America with migrants to prove that they're not racists. When you look at all the race-motivated attacks, 13% of the American population carry out 50% of the crime. And those crimes are obviously racially motivated. It's like saying that women don't commit a lot of crime when 70% of crimes committed by women are never charged. Most of petty shoplifting, prostitution, and of course, it's a sad reality that people are just so delusional. They're so selfish. They think they can manifest a greater world by not talking about problems and always, lowering things to the lowest common denominator and always blaming men. Who raises those men? Women. So Russia's liberation of Chasiv has swung open the gates, according to, whoever Svetlana was interviewing. It doesn't actually, according to experts. I was pretty sure they named somebody before, but... Alright, so... Now these were offensive actions, a series of offensive actions over 16 months since they secured Bakhmut. Now, it was an important town when Bakhmut was under siege, but since then it has been increasingly surrounded and isolated. And as you can see, there's the trench systems. They're all over the fields behind Bakhmut. The Russian army has been pounding them with rockets. Now, this is why I got to the article. Russia continues to adhere to its strategy of attrition, which I've pointed out many times. Strategic pressure instead of dramatic, bigger offensives. A steady build-up of combat power and grinding the front lines. And to continually stretch Ukraine's defences until they crack, even in strongholds. Oh, does this actually open up? There's the infographic. Now, as you can see, the Russian front line. And this is the part where Ukraine is still dug in. As you can see by the map and the colour changes, this is what the area of Russian control does. Now, there are properties and roads. This is the road in. There are trench lines through here. Possibly, as you can see, took a while for this to fall. Then here, and now we're up here, and like this here. This is the last to fall in here. Now, these was originally the command point. Then it was here. Now, in the last weeks, I believe it's been actually back here and further on. There were tunnels and that. There's not much more to it, but the white's the city line, the red is the front line, and there's a canal. And the canal, crossing the canal is what slowed down the Russians in many places, including, and of course I think the canal actually goes quite a way up. Yeah, it was a dominant city when it was under Ukrainian control months ago. We can look on the map very quickly and see. When the front line was further back, was already, see it, when this was the front line, men and machines coming obviously through this road into Chavis Yar and spread out through here. But if you're further back, when the front line was back here, this was a key industrial hub supplying all the way up here to Bakhmut and to down here. And Ukraine talks of its Roman tactics, right? You know, the Roman tactics. They would come in a column and fan out, and the fan out. Bro, you ain't Romans for a start, and two, you're idiots if you think that ancient tactics. And, well, this is the problem. So many pro-Ukrainian channels out there, or just delusional. You can see, piece by piece, right? They're going to wear up this. How many times have I told you? They're going to wear this down. If this collapses, this is what Russia wants, to turn this into a cauldron. They will put this into here. They'll push up here. See how they're advancing on this. Okay? They're pushing up so they can put all this under pressure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all this. 6. And then they'll cut this off, pushing the Ukrainians through here. Why would they do that? Why would they want to amass the Ukraine? Because they have to go the long way round. It puts them at risk of drone attacks. It puts thousands out of combat for even a day. And the Russian, and also, there is far more aviation on bombardment, right? These are just markers on a map. They don't tell you how long, and they don't pinpoint all the areas in here. It's only big action is reported, like the glide bombs here, or missile here, sorry. Or the drones here. But thousands every day are dying, and Zelensky just does not give a shit. Now, rightly or wrongly, Putin has laid out everything. He's always laid it out to those who pay attention and have their minds open and understanding, rather than a closed-minded liberal who is only thinking from their perspective and their selfish desires to have everybody like them, thinking that everybody's going to carry them on their shoulder and make them the world leaders. No, bro, they just use you and discard you because you're a pathetic, whimpering, snivelling sycophant. You're a bootlicker. Nobody likes bootlickers, but that's what liberals are. They're bootlickers. Hungary's not happy with the deal, but it's going ahead. You can cry all you want about Chevchya. It ain't gonna. Crying does not manifest destiny, okay? Manifest destiny. You know, liberals who keep talking about manifest destiny, they don't even know where it comes from, right? They keep thinking how if you just think good vibes, man, it will happen. They're just so childish, so immature, and they cost people's lives because they don't suffer any consequences of their actions. And most of them, they love annoying others. They love being belligerent. They love annoying people. They're that annoying neighbour who lets their dog shit on your lawn, you know, because allegedly you can't do anything to them. You know, you can go through all the bureaucracy you like, but, you know, these selfish people, they make the world a horrible place, but they run around with a chip on their shoulder thinking what good little people they are, thinking and that their free speech means they can annoy anybody. Now, thank you for watching. Please like, share and subscribe. And please support the channel. You can support me on Patreon, buy my books, buy my merch. All my links are in the link tree, description below, or in my profile, or scan the QR code on the screen right now. Please and thank you. See you in the next video, and bye for now.